friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today I'm going to tell you about the books that I've read so far in the month of August, and there are 8 of them. I feel like my reading has slowed down a little bit from July, but 8 books already is not that slow. So I'm really pleased with my progress. I had 4 buddy reads so far, 3 that meet some of the goals that I had for this year, and then 1 middle grade just because I love to throw a middle grade in there now and then. I'm not going to talk about these in the order that I read them. They're just in the order that they're stacked up right here. I will start with the 2 that were for my Goodreads read-along and hopefully encourage you to pick these up if you haven't yet and join in the discussion over there on Goodreads. I read The Peach Keeper by Sarah Addison Allen. She is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. I guess quickly is not the right word. I've read 3 of her books now and I've really loved all 3 of them. She does magical realism in a way that I find so delightful and charming. It's little things like an invitation to this gala that responds differently in the different homes. It flies up and hits people in the face, or it hides under another pile of books, all on its own. It's the bell of a shop dinging even though nobody's coming in the door. It's the smell of peaches every time something is talked about. There's just little elements of magical realism that don't really detract from the story or change the story in any way, but they're just like the wind that blows as the story is being told, and it's really lovely. I just loved it so much. In this story, we follow 2 women, really, Paxton and Willa. Both of them, they kind of grew up together in this small town in the South, and yet as adults, they don't really have that much to do with each other. Paxton has bought and remodeled this big estate that kind of is up on a hill, grand estate, and she's kind of turning it into a museum of sorts. And Willa's family used to live there, but then they had some financial issues and had to move out. So Willa is kind of down on her luck, lower economic class than Paxton, who is very wealthy and privileged. I loved Willa right from the get-go. She works at a sporting goods store and deals more with the tourists in the town. She doesn't have much to do with the townies. And Paxton kind of is the president of this women's club and the elite women of the town, even though she doesn't really feel like she connects with any of them. But these 2 women's lives intersect when a secret comes out as they are making final touches on the landscaping at this estate. A secret comes out that involves their grandmothers, Paxton and Willa's grandmothers, who were best buds when they were growing up, when they were much younger. They now live in the same nursing home, and Paxton and Willa are kind of both on the hunt to find out what really happened, and in the process their friendship emerges, which is really lovely. Both of them have their own little romance in the works as well, which was a lovely touch. I just really enjoyed this one. Clearly, I can't stop talking about it. The other book that I read for the Goodreads read-along is Ask Again Yes by Mary Beth Keane. This had come highly praised by so many people. It ended up being a 4-star read for me, but the middle section really lagged. But by the time we got to the end, it all had such meaning and purpose that I was willing to give it 4 stars. I feel like I'm growing a plant out of my head. This is really a family drama of these 2 families who lived next door to each other. It deals with alcoholism and mental illness. It deals with marriage issues. And it all is somewhat of a quiet story. The intensity isn't ever really ramped up. We deal mostly with the 2 children of these 2 families, Katie and Peter, and their friendship when they're young and their relationship as they get older. It really, like I said, was a quiet novel, and that is not normally my go-to. It had a heaviness to it and a loneliness to it as I was reading. I just really felt the characters' loneliness, and I didn't feel like they always really dealt with the issues that they had to deal with, or the way that they dealt with them was maybe different than how I would. But ultimately, it highlights the importance of forgiveness and redemption of certain relationships in this book. It really was good. It really was so good. But it's not flashy. It's not over the top. Like, it just was realistic in a way that was kind of heavy at times, because that's life. Sometimes it just feels heavy. But I really loved the focus on forgiveness. I loved where we ended up, even if I didn't love the whole process of getting there. There was one scene at the end between Peter and Katie that just brought me to tears in its simplicity and strength. It just had a lot of positives. I look forward to hearing what people think about this one as they finish it up in that Goodreads group. So good. So good. The next two that I'm going to talk about I did as buddy reads. I read The Alice Network finally by Kate Quinn, and guys, this was so good. You guys knew I was going to love this one. So many times in the comments I heard how much I'm going to love this book, and I definitely did. In this one we have a dual timeline, but those kind of overlap a lot. We follow two women, Charlie and Eve. Charlie, at the very beginning, tracks down Eve, who was part of this female spy network during World War I. Charlie tracks Eve down because she wants Eve to help her find her missing cousin, Rose. So their stories intersect, and along the way, Eve begins to open up to Charlie about her experience being a spy in the Alice Network during World War I. This book was so good. Very intense, very pacey. It moved along at quite a clip, and also quite gritty at times, both with some sexual scenes that happened, with some brutality that happened, and Kate Quinn does not hold back. There were times that I was reading and kind of cringing at the intensity of the way she was describing some of these scenes. It was bold, and it was so good. I definitely gave this one 5 stars. I was along for the ride completely. Ultimately, Eve and Charlie and Finn, who works with Eve, they all have their brokenness, and they all have their issues that they're trying to work with, and the way that they come together to help each other and to kind of learn and grow from their own past and how to move forward from these incredible tragedies that all 3 of them have had to experience. It's just so well done. Really, really loved that book. 5 stars. And I also read Blue Ridge Sunrise by Denise Hunter. This is my first Denise Hunter, and this is one of the authors that I've been wanting to read this year. So this is working towards that goal. Yay. I will definitely read more from Denise Hunter. This one is not particularly memorable in the way that I feel like all 3 of these were pretty memorable. So I think I ended up giving this just 3 stars. There were some parts of it that were a little cheesy. It is Christian fiction. However, I do think it's very approachable for those who may not come from a Christian faith. It is not at all sermonizing all the way through. There are a few scenes where they attend church together, and especially towards the end, it talks about God a little bit more, but it's not all the way through like some Christian fiction are. In this one, we do follow Zoe, who comes back home to her small town in Tennessee, I think, from Nashville, where she is singing as a backup singer for her boyfriend Kyle's band. Kyle is not very well loved by her family and friends, but Zoe is pursuing her dream of being a singer. She comes back home because her grandmother passes away and leaves Zoe the orchard, and she's got to figure out what she's going to do about this orchard. Along the way, of course, she comes in contact with her high school boyfriend, and sparks fly. The unresolved feelings there, lack of closure from that past relationship. Zoe just has to figure out what she's going to do. She's a single mom and has to figure out if she's going to stay and take care of the orchard. So of course there's some obstacles that come up in the way and things that she needs to work through, and it was good. I enjoyed it. It's a 3-star read. I will read more from Denise Hunter though. I did enjoy it enough to read more, and that's the first in a series, so maybe I'll continue on with that series. We'll see. Another author that I wanted to read this year is Jhumpa Lahiri, and I did read Interpreter of Melodies, which is a collection of short stories that won the Pulitzer Prize. Pulitzer? I don't know. I am not a short story reader, so I did not give this 5 stars because while some of the stories were really good, I often ended the story and felt like I was missing something. Like either I just didn't get it, or it didn't give me enough closure, or I didn't understand what was the point. But I did give it 4 stars because I thought that it was an interesting look into the life of people in India and Indian immigrants to the United States. A lot of the stories were very mundane things that happen to these people and how they deal with them and their emotions. So it was kind of interesting. The writing was fantastic. I would definitely be interested in reading more from June Lahiri because I do feel like she pulled me in with each story, but ultimately it just left me wanting more. So I did give this collection, I think, 4 stars because I really do love her writing and I was interested in each story. I just didn't always quite get what it was about, and I didn't leave feeling like, whoa, that was amazing. I read another sequel, making progress on those sequels. This is book 7, I want to say, in the Louise Penny Armand Gamache mystery series, and I'm just loving these. I am listening to these on audio. I can't tell you much about this, but this one dealt with art. Two of the people who live in Three Pines that we've met right from the beginning are artists. It's a husband and wife are artists, and it's so interesting. I really have loved seeing the progression of Clara and her art, and Peter, the husband, and how he feels about his wife's art. And this title definitely plays a role in this whole story, and art plays a role in this whole book, and perspective, and how we look at things and how light shines on things that might reveal something that we didn't realize was there. Very interesting, very, very cool. The mystery in this is that Clara just had a show for her art and is having a party in Three Pines afterwards, and a woman ends up dead in their garden. It turns out it's somebody that Clara knew when she was quite young in art school, and they were very, very close. But then this other woman who died gave Clara a really, really bad review during art school, and it really turned Clara off to art for a long time. So are they connected to the murder or not? It was really good. I love this series. So good. Okay. I started off the month reading The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. This was on my summer TBR. I had chosen a handful of books from the Modern Mrs. Darcy Summer Reading Guide, and this is one of them. I had heard some mixed things about this, so I did go in with kind of low expectations, to be honest, because I had heard some people say that they didn't really care for it. And it did start very slowly for me, and it continued to be kind of like one of the, like Ask Again Yes, like not flashy at all. However, as an Austen fan, I really enjoyed all of the nods to Austen's work that were in this book. So this is not an adaptation or retelling of any of Austen's books. It's about these quirky kind of characters who are all either residents of Chawton or have some connection to Chawton, England, which is where Jane Austen lived. One of them is actually a direct descendant of like an uncle or something of the Austen family. And these people all come together ultimately to try to preserve in some way Jane Austen's legacy, whether it's trying to preserve her library or her home or the steward's cottage at the estate. And it's that journey of them coming together. So we kind of get a different perspective of each of these different people and what they're going through and how their lives start to intertwine with each other, and then their process of forming the Jane Austen Society in order to make a memorial of some sort to Jane Austen. It snuck up on me in such a delightful way. I did not think that I was caring much for this book. Even into halfway through, I was like, should I DNF this? Should I just keep going? I was debating that. But I did keep going, and at one point I'm crying because of a situation that happened, and I was like, whoa, these characters have snuck their way into my little heart. I ended up caring so much about them, and I thought it ended up being such a lovely read. I will give it 4 stars, and I just think it was fantastic. Charming, slower, definitely be prepared for that, and understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea. I think if you have a really good understanding and love for Jane Austen's books, that you can enjoy it even more. I have heard some people that really enjoyed it even though they're not familiar with Austen, but I noticed two of the people have a Persuasion-like story in their real life. There's a lot of tie-ins with the story of Persuasion, which is my favorite. So I think that those two characters, their storylines were my favorite as I started to recognize that. So that was a lot of fun for me as I was reading this one. Yeah, I'm really glad I picked it up. And thank you. One of you guys sent this to me. Sharon, I think maybe? Thank you for sending this to me because I enjoyed it very, very much. And then just a couple days ago, I picked up a middle grade. This is in my library stack. I have so many books on my shelves, but I continue to go to the library and bring home loads of books, and this is one of them. You may remember earlier this year, I've read Grump and Red, which are also retellings of fairy tales that are in this series. So this one is Grump, which is obviously a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs retelling. It was charming and delightful. Are those words that I've used a lot in this video? I think so. But that's exactly what it was. And Grump is kind of an outcast dwarf who doesn't like to be underground, and he has this kind of obsession with going onto the surface and learning about the surface that really is frustrating to his parents. And they get him put on a crew that goes into the deepest mines, but these mines end up giving him the path out to the surface, and he goes and escapes the mines for a while, meets Snow White's evil stepmother, doesn't realize that that's who she is because he's never been above ground before, kind of builds a bond with her, and the story kind of goes from there. It was quirky and cute and a quick read and just exactly the lightness that I wanted. Just finished Ask Again Yes and Interpreter of Melodies right before reading this, and both of those were a little slower and heavier and more character driven for sure, and I needed something light and fun and fluffy. This absolutely provided that for me, so yay. That is it for the 8 books that I've read so far. I am in the middle of 4 books, as per usual. This is my MO. I just actually started one today, Far From the Madding Crowd. I'm doing this as a buddy read with 2 of my subscribers, so I'm really excited to chat with them about this one, and I just have only read chapter 1, so I'm literally 8 pages into this one. Barely starting, but excited to read a classic. Other than Gone with the Wind, I haven't read any classics this year, so I'm really excited to pick that one up. I also finally started a Lucinda Riley. This is The Lavender Garden, and people told me to start with this one as opposed to The Girl on the Cliff, but it's about a woman who's a spy during World War II. That's one of the storylines, but it's also about this young girl who goes back to her home because she is bequeathed this estate, this family estate, and she's got to figure out what to do about it. So I'm loving the dual timelines. I'm only about a quarter of the way in, maybe a third almost. The very first couple chapters were a little slow to get into, but it has picked up quite a bit, and I'm loving it. A nonfiction that I'm working on is A Long Walk to Freedom, and I'm like barely into this one as well because I'm just picking this up real slow. This is going to be, as currently reading podcast girls say, this is my slow but steady. So this might take me quite a long time to read. It looks like it's massive. It's really only 600 something pages, so it shouldn't take too long, but because I'm reading it in the midst of everything else, it might take a while. This is Nelson Mandela's autobiography. I'm really looking forward to continuing to get to know Nelson Mandela. And the audiobook that I am reading, or listening to, I should say, is Dragonfly and Amber by Diana Gabaldon. I haven't updated. I've listened to a little bit more than that, but this is also from my series shelf. This is the second in the Outlander series, and we're continuing to follow Claire on her journey. Claire and Jamie. So that's it. Whew! Here are the 8 that I've actually read already this month. I'd love to chat with you down below about these books, about my current reads, about anything else you want to talk about. What have you loved reading so far this month? And yeah, let's talk down there. You guys know I love talking with you in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the little bell so you know when I post a video, because I never know when I'm going to post them. So you don't really know either. It might be like the one downfall of my channel is that I don't have set uploading days. But once I set uploading days, it'll feel too much like work and I won't want to do it. So sorry for the sporadic uploading schedule or lack of schedule. Anyways, I hope that you're doing wonderfully. Have a great week, and I will talk with you down in the comments, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye.